Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. This is going to be the first episode in a series of episodes where I am going to be talking about the different, I would say, ship classes almost, or ways that ships can be played. We could call it play styles, but I know that that's a term that Wargaming has made videos about, and while I don't particularly agree with some of the setups out of these, I'm more talking about roles. Maybe roles is a good term. So this follows the intro that I did earlier, that I did last week about the tech tree and the assistance for new players to navigate and find their way around the tech tree. And also people have been asking me and said, hey, can you please talk about this? Because even in high tiers, we're now getting players who have absolutely no idea how they should be playing the ships that they end up playing, and are just, potatoing. And that's not something that we want. So educational purpose confirmed. Let's go. And the first role we're going to be talking about is the torpedo destroyer. Because again, remember, this is for beginners. This is for people who are new to the game to understand what these are. Because if we're looking at the, I'm going to just refresh it very briefly. We're going to be looking at the wiki. It says destroyer, and it says use speed, stealth, and terrain to get into position and launch devastating torpedo attacks. Not a bad advice in general, but it doesn't quite. We have so many different destroyers in the game now that are falling into the ship class of destroyers, but that are actually of different subclasses. So let's begin with the torpedo boat subclass, and we're going to go back to the tech tree. There's a range. What is a torpedo boat? A torpedo boat is a destroyer that relies mostly on its stealth, so it just tries not to be seen, and on its torpedoes to do damage. The polar opposite of a torpedo boat would be a gunboat, which would be a destroyer that relies mainly on his guns to do damage and has torpedoes as a weapon of opportunity. In the one we're talking about, the torpedo boat, it's the other way around. The guns are weapons of opportunity. The torpedoes are what you're going to be doing most of your damage with. Now, that isn't to say that all destroyers are clearly falling into one or the other. Right? That's why I'm calling it a role. You can play this role with different destroyers. Let's go through the tech tree and see which destroyer branches are falling into this role, because that's kind of where I want to bring it along, to say, if you enjoy this kind of role, this kind of play style, this is what you should be probably playing. Let's begin at the top. Now, the American destroyers are more on the multi-role side. You need to get up to at least, I believe, tier 8 or 9 until they can effectively work as torpedo destroyers, because they just don't have the range on the torpedoes, and you would have to be seen. This is not I'm going to just play around my concealment and try not to be seen and use the torpedoes. This isn't to say that these can't use torpedoes. All destroyers can use their torpedoes very effectively. It's just not the same playstyle, right? So that would not be a good choice. The obvious choice and the kind of template prototype for this particular role is the traditional Japanese destroyer line. So everything that goes up towards the Shimakaze. We're looking at tier 8, because I feel like tier 8 is a good place for a lot of new players to stop, because of the sheer investment. I said tier 6 earlier, and yes, but if you want to follow a line, if you have decided that you want to pursue that playstyle a bit more, then tier 8 is kind of the next sort of logical step. So this line is, that is what this line is very, very good at. That is probably the strongest torpedo boat destroyer line that is out there. The British destroyers as well can play this role, although they do have pretty decent guns and quite a bit of utility as well. But they can play this role too. And the German destroyers, if you wanted to play this kind of role, it would be a bit of a waste, because of the guns are really, really excellent. They can stealth torpedo as well, but it's not their sort of primary purpose. The Soviet destroyers cannot do this. because the Soviet destroyers just don't have the range on the torpedoes. These are pure gunboat destroyers. They're probably about the furthest on the range. The Pan-Asian destroyers can play this role quite successfully, but you have to be aware that the Pan-Asian destroyers have deep water torpedoes. This means you cannot torpedo enemy destroyers, which is not per se an issue, because especially in higher tiers, you're going to have a devil of a time torpedoing destroyers anyway. You're much better off using your guns. But these ships also can use that sort of role quite effectively and can stay undetected and use their torpedoes. The French destroyers are scout cruisers, so no. The European destroyers they sort of can, but they don't have the punch on the torpedoes. The European destroyers, which are mostly Swedish, are relying more on their fast torpedoes and their high flooding chance to do damage over time. So this is a different skill set. This is not the I'm going to stay sneaky and just torpedo things and to try to stay out of detection set. So I wouldn't quite classify them there. So let's get back to the prototypical destroyer line for this particular role, and let's go and see what kind of skills you need in order to play that role. Let's go to the Kagero. Let's get out here. There we've got the Kagero. Now you obviously want to minimize your surface detection, because what range do you have on these torpedoes? And this is how you can determine this yourself. You can say, is my range on my torpedoes comfortably larger than the range of my surface detection? They have a base surface detection or base concealment of 5.4 kilometers and a torpedo range of 9.6 kilometers. So yes, you can very, very comfortably torpedo things without being spotted. You can reduce that obviously further, and that wasn't the base, sorry, that's already with the concealment modification. So in the third slot, you would use the concealment modification. That is probably true for pretty much all destroyers, that you want to use the concealment modification. Then you can use camouflages. Either you want to pay money and you get the historical camouflage, but usually you wouldn't if you're just going in the grind. Fortunately, the free camouflage, which only costs silver, gives you a 3% surface detection as well. So we're looking down here now. You have a 5.22 kilometer surface detection. Then you would use the high-grade coal as a supply, which further reduces your surface detection by 3%. That's not reflected here. That'll only be reflected in-game. But with this setup, you have a very, very good surface detection. So this means, what does this mean for this playstyle? This means you can outspot pretty much everything. So let's quickly hop into the training room, and I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about. What are the things that you sort of need to be aware when you're trying to play this role of a torpedo boat destroyer, of a stealth torpedo boat destroyer? So there are a couple of things that fall within your role that you need to do. First things first, you are there to get capture circles. Now, I am using the speed boost to rush towards the capture circle. And you see, while this is not the fastest destroyer out there, it is one of the stealthiest destroyers. So you should be able to see enemy ships before they see you, unless they are also destroyers or of a similar kind. And if you look at the minimap, there's a dotted line around your ship. That is your surface detection. If you fire your guns, observe what happens. The surface detection increases to the range of the guns, which isn't great on the Kagero, so it's not increasing by an awful lot. And it then takes quite a bit of time to decrease again. So you see, we've been waiting here for quite a bit. We haven't been firing the guns, but the surface detection is still up at 7 odd kilometers. Now it's gone down again. So now we're safe again. But if you look at the torpedoes, the range on your torpedoes is actually much greater than on your guns. So the first thing that's part of your role, you want to secure a capture circle, but you don't want to necessarily get into a dogfight with an enemy destroyer, because your guns are not great. They have a very, very slow turret rotation. So you see that if you turn around, your rear turret's taking a long time to get on target. And also the ship isn't the fastest. And while you do have one smoke screen, that is more like a get out of jail card for situational things. So most of the time, what you will try to do during the game is you will try not to be seen. And that is sort of your primary, and try to land torpedoes on target. That doesn't mean that you're going to be sneaking around the edge of the map. Please don't do that sort of thing, because that means that you're ineffective. So you can, if you look at your torpedo range, right? I'm almost able to reach the edge of B cup over there. So what I could do is, if there was something there, I could drop torpedoes in its way and use them for things like area denial to support my team. It's a bit of a more advanced thing where you need to be aware of where ships are and where you don't want ships to be. But the second skill that is important for this role, and I think for that we're going to drop out of the training room, the second skill that is important for this role, besides trying not to be seen, is to anticipate what your target is doing. So for that we're going to drop out of the training room, and I'm actually going to get into a battle where I'm going to show you that a little bit, and where we're going to discuss that a little bit further, what other things this role entails. So I'm here in the cargo row, and we're playing Epicenter. Now, staying out of, not being detected doesn't mean that you need to hide yourself the whole time behind an island or at the edge of the map. Like I said, don't do that, because the other thing I mentioned, with great stealth comes great responsibility. You're also good at scouting and capture objectives, because you can outspot enemy ships and then not use your guns and then just disengage. We are playing against, and this is always important to take a note, we're playing against a couple of ships, some of which are dangerous. So for example, the Tashkent is a gunboat. The Tashkent will be superior to you in a gunfight. You do not want to get into a gunfight with the Tashkent if you can avoid it. The Cleveland has radar, which negates your smoke screen and basically makes you detectable within almost 8 kilometer range, which is also dangerous. The Edinburgh has a lot of guns and will fire armor piercing at you, which will do a lot of damage also, and has sonar and a smoke of itself. Very dangerous ship as well. So you kind of want to avoid these ships. What you want to do are two things. And let's get started, just so we have something to look at. You want to assist your team in capturing the rings, and you want to assist your team in scouting enemy ships, and you want to assist your team in ensuring that the enemy team is not capturing the rings. So use your torpedoes as your main weapon to do damage, and to keep the enemy team out of here. So the first thing we're going to be doing is using the engine boost to maximize our acceleration, and we're going to get into the inner rings as much as possible. There's no carrier. We do have I believe we have a Tone on our team, so we do actually have some scouting. If he was going to scout with the scout planes, but he seems to be flying around the outer ring there. So we are now capturing the outer ring. And we have stopped capturing the outer ring. That means the two enemy destroyers are in there as well. So we know that there are enemy destroyers coming. You don't want to just keep rushing straight ahead. You want to not be seen, right? Remember, you're a stealth boat. You're not supposed to be seen ideally. But you have the luxury that you're probably going to be outspotting most of the things. Okay, so the Tone has been scouting. And we know that there's one of the enemy destroyers. Actually, we see both of the enemy destroyers. And we see that they're not coming inside here. So we can now, they're the Kagro and the Tashkent. We can now capture the center ring and use our torpedoes to just kind of push them out. You don't want to use your guns here because there's a Cleveland over there. And if he knows that you're here and can see you, then he can make your life very, very miserable. So now we're going to be using the torpedoes to try, and the Tashkent is also now in the inner ring. But we're keeping him spotted because we are outspotting the Tashkent. Now we're spotted, which is unfortunate, so we're going to get ourselves out of here. Drop our torpedoes in the general direction of the enemy team. And given that there is a Cleveland out there and a Tashkent and a whole bunch of other things, now is a good time to use that smoke screen. So the Tashkent has no way of negating that, which means we are going to go undetected. And we can use our guns. So just because we are a torpedo boat doesn't mean we can't use our guns. The guns are useful. Just don't use them as a primary means of doing damage. And I'm trying to get a permafire on him because he's damage controlled his flooding, obviously. But keep in mind also that the guns will increase firing the guns will increase your detection range. So we've assisted as much as we could, but now it's time to get out of here because our detection range is high and we need to get unspotted again. There's an enemy Amagi. And I'm just turning the ship around. I'm kind of tempted to fire the guns again there, to go for the fire, but we're not going to fire the guns because we're supposed to be playing as a stealth ship. So any second now we should be undetected again. One torpedo spread in the direction of the Amagi, but the Amagi is outside the capture circles and it's got a North Carolina and a Tornado bearing down on it. So we don't need to go there. Remember the other thing I said, you have very good surface detection. You can assist your teams in capturing the objectives and in making yourself useful. There's a Gascogne. So I've dropped some torpedoes on the Gascogne. There are a couple of torpedo hits on the Amagi, and we got a kill assist on that thing. And it looks like the torpedoes on the Gascogne are missing. Now observe what the torpedo indicator is doing, that white line. Yeah, we've got one torpedo hit, and we've spotted the Edinburgh over there, so we don't want to go over there because that's where an Edinburgh is. But we can now sit in open water because we are not detected, and unless we get any closer to any of these ships, they have no way of detecting us. Now we can use the torpedo indicator to observe where the Gascogne is going. The Gascogne is reversing, and that's why we're dropping the torpedoes along this line. I am assuming that he might actually go and not reverse anymore. So when we go drop the second spread a little bit ahead, but we need to get out of here because that Edinburgh is coming uncomfortably close. So you can use your torpedo indicator to see where an enemy ship is moving. And then one important skill that you're going to need if you want to be a successful player of this kind of stealth torpedo role is to anticipate what your enemy is doing. And yeah, I have misplaced the second spread because the Gascogne obviously has been hit by torpedoes and has now been accelerating. So I should have been putting that a lot further in the other direction. But either way, the Gascogne is now low on hit points and is leaving and is no longer going to be contesting the capture circle. Now that Edinburgh is coming our way. You can see him turning. Again, observe the white line on the torpedo indicator. So I'm using the engine boost to get out of here as much as possible and get behind the island if I need to disengage from the Edinburgh. And I can drop some torpedoes in his way. He's turning left. He's turning right to his right. So second spread a little bit offset. And I am spotted. And there's also a Cleveland. So I need to get away from these things. Do not use your guns in this kind of scenario. But we have gotten a hit in on the Edinburgh. And that means we should be undetected any second now when the Edinburgh is sinking. So do not give any broadside to dangerous ships like the Cleveland, but we've once again managed to go undetected because I haven't used the guns. And we have also secured the center capture circle, and the enemy team is down to 2 ships. So there's not an awful lot. That can still go wrong in this battle. And we're once again undetected, so we can now just, make ourselves useful, capture another objective here. We know that the enemy destroyer is in the center cap. Why do we know that? Because it's getting flipped. So the enemy cargo is in the center ring, which means I can now put my torpedoes on widespread, because if I want to have any chance of hitting that thing or from longer range, and we can now see if we can spot the enemy cargo. The Cleveland is sailing away, so that threat is gone. Let's see if we can find him. There he is, but he's also a stealth torpedo boat, so we're outspotting each other. So now comes the terrain question, right? I'm slowing down here, because if he dropped torpedoes in my direction, they would now miss, because the island's in the way. And once again, I'm using the torpedo indicator to see where he's going. Unfortunately, the Vittorio Veneto is running into my second spread, but I've switched the guns over to the armor piercing. You can, but you don't have to. The high explosive is pretty good on these guns as well. And now I can use my guns because it's the last ship alive, and I've actually managed to get a torpedo hit in on the enemy cargo there. So that's sort of as a summary. What do you want to do? You want to be undetected, you want to use your stealth, you want to primarily use your torpedoes. You don't need to fire your torpedoes down the aiming cone as soon as you spot a target. Observe the target. See what the target is doing. See where they're going. See who they're shooting at. Try to think about what they're going to be doing next, and then anticipate that with your torpedoes. Get as close as you possibly can without being detected by just using the little dotted line on the minimap. And use your guns if there's an opportunity to use them, but be aware that this will increase your surface detection for, I think it's about 20 seconds or so. So once you stop firing your guns, you need to wait a little bit until it goes down again, and then you can go back to stealth. And you can use your torpedoes, like to deny the enemy team certain areas, to make them leave certain areas where you don't want them to be. And your targets are capital ships. Cruisers usually have too much utility and maneuverability to be reliably hit by torpedoes. Destroyers are not really your target unless you get really a lucky hit. Capital ships, so battleships, if you get the opportunity, an aircraft carrier. Aircraft carriers obviously can negate your stealth quite a little bit, so you got to be careful. I've made a whole video about that sort of thing. But that's this sort of role. So now you have a bit of an idea what it is that you're supposed to be doing if you're playing like that, and what kind of line you can take for this, and what kind of which tech tree would make sense to go down if you want to play like that. That's it for today. We'll keep doing that for all the other kind of roles that I can possibly think of, and for the other tech trees, to give you a bit of a better idea of how this works. But hopefully that was useful, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.